Do I think they're going to reach a point where they outprice themselves compared to other people and they start to see growth drop? Yes, I do. I do think they're doing it to rival the likes of Hermes, but this year, well, since 2019 to 2023, the price of the medium classic flap has actually gone up by a whopping 60%. That's huge. And my question is, and this is what I'm going to be talking about, for how much longer, when the jumbo classic flap, which I got back here, which I didn't pay £10,000 for, but it's over £10,000. For how much longer can you keep putting up prices before actually you start seeing a knock-on effect to growth and to the number of people that even want the bag in the first place? Hi everyone, welcome to another video. So we're going to be talking about the 2023 Chanel price increases, because I think for a lot of us, we probably thought that they would be slowing down, or at the very least, the percentage that the prices would be going up by would be getting lower, simply because since 2019, the prices of a lot of their classic pieces has actually gone up by 60%, which is huge. And in my mind, I ask the question, for how long can you keep putting up prices? Because I think they're doing it to rival the likes of Hermes, but is that going to work? Because Hermes, they are like that unicorn, that brand that is very well known for exquisite quality, being very difficult to get if you want certain bags, and also the resale value, the price, what your bag is worth the moment you've paid your money for it and you've walked out of the shop, you know you've just bought an investment piece that is going to be worth more money immediately. That's not the case with Chanel, and we're going to be going through that in this video. I'm going to show you some examples and we're going to talk about the whole thing. So first of all, let's talk about this price increase. They had a price increase from memory back in March 2023, and they are due to have another one. It's normally in early November, and I only know that because it's my birthday in early November, and sometimes if I think I'm going to treat myself to something from Chanel, sometimes I get in there and I'm late by a couple of days and the prices have already gone up. So that's how I kind of know about that one. But if we look at growth for Chanel last year, so during the pandemic, Chanel put their prices up in 2020 and then in 2021 by actually what was quite a huge amount. And it felt quite strange to a lot of us to be doing that during a pandemic. And they did say that a lot of it was to do with supply and demand, because during the pandemic, when the factories were closed down, they had fewer products available to sell. And I know from someone I know who works in Prada, actually, they said that during the pandemic, because they had a shortage of stock coming through, they were holding stock back in like the back rooms or whatever you want to call it. They were holding stock back because there was an appetite from customers to treat themselves because lockdown had been so miserable, and they knew if they put everything out on the shop floor there wasn't stuff coming through, and then they can't end up with bare shelves. So, and I think that the same thing definitely happened with Chanel. Those bags became harder to get, and maybe because of a drop, like a big drop in sales, because globally boutiques were closed. That was one of the reasons why prices were put up, and put up by so much. And I can well imagine that because the price rises happened in 2020 and 2021, I can well imagine that it would have taken 2 years to have recouped those lost sales. Even though the minute they opened their doors, there were very famous images of queues around the block from people from China to the UK to the States to Australia queuing to get into Chanel, because everyone was just wanting their luxury fix at that point. But Chanel's chief financial operator was asked the question, are you going to be putting up prices? And he has said that due to currency fluctuations and inflation, as well as the rising costs of material and labour, that is the reason why Chanel have put up their prices and will be doing so again this year, as usual, twice. However, there are thoughts that, and I'm going to quote this, instead it appears that Chanel has deliberately cultivated a pricing and exclusivity program designed to rival Hermes. After all, the Chanel medium classic flap has increased by over 60% since 2019. And this is something I think they are doing. I think definitely there is something to be said for inflation. And I can well imagine that the cost of materials has gone up too, as well as the cost of labour. I still question whether this bag really costs £10,000 to make, even with today's inflation, currency conversions, materials, labour, there is no way this bag costs that much to make. And there is a really amazing guy on social media that I'm sure loads of you have seen called Leatherstein, and he literally destroys these bags. He takes them apart and he tells you, based on all of the hardware, the amount of leather, the way it's all put together, he tells you how much likely these bags are to make, and they're not a lot. From the most part, a lot of the bags I've seen him review, including Chanel, he reckons they cost less than £1,000 to produce, and so their price rises to me seem a lot more than just those two things. I think they're trying to rival Hermes without doubt, but I don't feel like Chanel will ever be Hermes, and I don't believe that you can gain exclusivity and desirability just by continuing to put your prices up. You can't take something that to a lot of people is not very well made and not worth it and no longer has the gold hardware on it, etc., put the price up extortionately and suddenly it becomes more desirable. To some people that will be the case, but I think to a lot of people, particularly in this economy, a lot of us are thinking more about our money and how we're spending it. And I do think that there is a misconception that the elite and the mega rich are mindless with their money. If you look at a lot of people that have money, they have money because they're cautious with it and they think before they go and spend things. There will definitely, of course, I'm not saying there isn't, there will be people who can go and buy this and £10,000 to them is like £10. You know, it doesn't feel that much. They will exist. But how many of those people are out there buying these bags? Now, if I talk to you about growth of Chanel last year in 2022, their growth was 17%, which actually, if you compare it to LVMH Group, whose growth was 23%, it's not that much. Like, it's okay, but it's not that much. And actually, the main reason for that growth was China. Last year, apparently, the Chinese market went all out mad for Chanel. But the US has seen a hit. The amount of sales happening in the US has dropped hugely. And I think that this has got to do with the cost of living and how it's impacted. Maybe it's impacted the West more than it has the East. I'm not sure, kind of guessing here. But I do think that that plays a big part. So why do I think that now is the time to buy? You might think it's strange that I would say that given everything I've just spoken about, but there is a bit of a plot twist to this. I think now is the time to buy, but now is the time to buy pre-loved, not new. I think unless you are desperate for that boutique experience and you want to walk into a boutique, have that experience, you've got the money, you want the bag, and you want that reassurance, because I know a lot of people feel this, you want that 100% guaranteed reassurance that you've just bought something that's genuine, then go for it. But I would say that I don't think their classic bags are now worth the money. I think they're too expensive, and if you look pre-loved, they are not coming even anywhere close to what they are new. So I would go and have a look at pre-loved. And the reason why I'm saying this is if you take the jumbo, for example, the jumbo, when I've been looking, you can pick them up for sometimes 50% less than what they actually are new. So for around about 5,000. I've even seen them a couple of months ago, I was seeing them for like 4,500, but now you can get them for 5,000 or 6,000, which is a huge saving. The only caveat I would say is when it comes to Chanel's seasonal bags, these I think are still worth buying. So they're seasonal bags. I'm going to give you an example. Like this was a seasonal bag from 2021. And this was under £3,000 from memory. No, it wasn't. It was £3,250, something like that. That's worth it. If you go and look at their seasonal bags now, you're looking at 4,500 average. They for me, I think are still worth it. But anything over 5k, I would really think long and hard. And the other reason why I say these are good is because you can still get good money for these pre-loved. So if you buy it and one day you get into a pickle and you need to get your money back, the chances are you can actually sell this for close to what you paid. Do I think you can get more than what you paid? Unless you get it in a very unique colour and somebody sees the bag and they're desperate for it and they're willing to pay the money. But for the most part, I think you're going to lose money on it, but not as much as a classic flap. Is now the time to sell? I honestly think no. And I think the answer is no, because when you go and look pre-loved, the prices that things are actually selling for, so forget what people want for things. When you see the price of something, like I went to a pre-loved store the other day and they had a small square white flap, vintage with gold hardware, and it was over £10,000. No one's going to spend that. Someone might, but the chances are no one's going to spend that. So the prices people want are very different to the prices people are actually selling for. And if you take a look on, I love Leatherstein Collective because you can actually see a history of what things have sold for. If you go and look at what things have sold for, there is a big drop. They are not selling for anywhere near their retail price. And that is a massive difference to Hermes, where, as I said earlier, you can go and buy something, you walk out of the shop and it's already worth more than you paid for it. I don't think Chanel are ever going to beat Hermes, and I don't think that now is a good time to sell. I would personally wait, hold on. These prices are only going to keep going up, but I think there is a ceiling to how much the majority of people are willing to pay. And that ceiling seems to be £5,500 when I look pre-loved. That seems to be as much as people are willing to pay for one of these bags. But you go and look at Hermes, completely different story. You can make money on those. But I'm interested to sit back now and see where this goes, because for how long can you keep putting up prices? Like if these bags go up by another 60% within the next 4 years, that's just ridiculous. What is that going to be? Nearly £20,000. That's ridiculous for this bag. Sure, it's a nice bag, but it's not worth that. I think that's complete madness. By the way, the only time I think it's worth selling is if you bought something years ago and you bought it for a lot less. Like I bought this for £4,500. If I'm lucky, I might sell it for £5,500. For me, I'm not even going to bother selling it because I like the bag. Not that I use it that much. I don't use Chanel Classic flaps because I feel they're too much of a risk now. They're so expensive. I don't want to damage them or get mugged for them or anything like that. I'm quite enjoying my vintage when it comes to classic flaps, but I think they are going to put up prices continually, and I'm just, as I say, I'm going to sit back and see where this goes. If you've enjoyed watching this, come and join me in another video. I'm going to put one up here which you might enjoy, or there is another one over here. Thank you all so much for joining me, and hopefully I will see you again in a minute, depending on which one you go for.